Hello everybody and welcome to a special edition of the Alternative Sports Show. I'm Matthew Connell, normally joined by Andre Dixon, but he's not here today. I've got Daniel Falui from the Sports Heads. We're talking about top level replacement. My brother, my guy, as Dre would say, merry men, whatever. What's up, player? Good to see you.
Mate, I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's a good week. Wednesday in the week, halfway through the working week. I'm fantastic. But look, enough about me. Let's go to the main man of the show. My fellow Nigerian brother, Mr. Sam Acho. Oh, Sam, how have you been, man? It's been a while.
It's been a while, Dan, but I'm good to be back on with you all, man. It's so glad to be back here. Man, it's been a minute, but I'm great. I'm doing great.
For the UK listeners, I don't think, for those who don't know, look, Sam's written a great book, a fantastic book, and that's what we're really going to delve into today. And the book's called Let the World See You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes. Now, Sam, just quickly, give us an overview of the book, really, for those listening.
Definitely. Well, my background is a little bit in American football. I've played the last 9 years in the National Football League and the NFL. Also, I'm on the executive committee of the NFL Players Association, so negotiating collective bargaining agreements with ownership, all these billion-dollar deals. That's what I've been doing. And my most recent endeavor has been writing this book, which has been the most exciting, the highlight for me in my life in a lot of ways. And that's a big statement, right? NFL player and married and kids. But this book is about what it means to be seen, to be known, and to be loved. It's called Let the World See You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes. You can get it on audiobook and you can get it. It's available. So I'm so pumped about it.
So this is a guy who's been, I've been seeing the interviews, and this has been exciting for myself and Daniel, because it's like, there's so much that we want to tap into, because I'm about 8 chapters deep, as I mentioned before we went on, and I was like, okay, there's some stuff that's super relatable, minus the part that neither me or Daniel do professional sport. You never know, I mean, we might do something great one day.
It's 2020. Crazier things have happened. If you do a tryout, you might end up on I don't know what team y'all support, Man City or I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong one. So.
Exactly. There's always hope. There's always hope in this. We gotta believe. But this is a crazy thing, because it's like, I'm 30, you're 32, so you're only 2 years older than me, and here we go. You're just dropping a book, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's amazing, because of course the playing career alone would give you so many stories. For any sports fan that follows any sport, you could follow one player, whether it's the guy who was winning loads of stuff, could write loads of amazing stories. The guys that don't win so much or might have almost made it will have their own story to tell. Now, along that journey, it's an incredible journey, and hearing the early stages of just what makes you. But how was the decision into making this book? Did you make journals? Would you keep notes? How did you collect all these thoughts, all these experiences, all these stories to drop a book on the 32nd year of your life? And here we are.
Yeah, well, funny enough, Matthew, it actually started when I was 30. This whole journey started for me when I was 30. I remember you said, was I journaling? What was I doing? I remember actually sitting down for the first time in my life with a counselor, the therapist. I was 30 years old, married with kids, playing in the NFL, top level football. Things in a lot of ways, I had signed a multi-million-dollar contract in the NFL. I'm not sure how that relates in pounds, but it's a lot of money. So things were going really good in so many ways. Things looked like they were perfect. But on the inside, I was struggling. I was pretending. I was trying to be someone who I wasn't. And the weight of that pretending, those masks that I was wearing, the weight was just too much. And so it got to a point where I was sitting down with one of my friends, one of my good buddies, and I said, I just need the season to start. We were 1 week before we were going to start training camp, our season, right? This is the time. And I said, I don't know what's going on in my life. I just need the season to start, and then everything will be okay, right? 30 years old, got the contract, got the money, I just need to get back to football. And I told him how about my marriage was struggling. I was on the brink of breaking. My marriage wasn't doing well. Relationship with my kids, I was getting angry so easily. Things that weren't even really me. Like, what is going on with my family, my parent, everything? And I remember sharing this with my friend and saying, I just need to get back to football. And he said, dude, if that's how you feel right now, he said, I'm concerned about what happens. Right, I'm 30 years old. He said, I'm concerned what happens when you retire from football. When football ends, you're already past the average. What happens when you retire? And as I start sharing with him, I start to cry. And people who know me, I don't really, it's not really my thing. At least it wasn't at the time. I start to cry because I'm saying, I don't know what's going on. And he looks at me and he says, Sam, it's really nice to see you. It's really nice to see you. And I'm sitting there like, what do you mean? Like, I'm wiping the tears away. And he said, it's good to see you. It's good to see that you are human. You're not perfect. You don't have it all together. Nobody does. You are human, and it's really nice to see. So he actually recommended that I go talk to a counselor, a therapist. And as I'm sitting down with the therapist, he asked me a question. The therapist says, Sam, I've got a question for you. I figured I would go there and just, be in and be out, check the box and move on. He said, no, it's not that easy. I got a question for you. What do you do when you get angry? And I look at him, I said, well, I just try not to get angry. He says, well, come on, man. Like, what do you do when you get angry? I said, I just don't get angry. As I'm raising my voice and saying this. He says, Sam, Sam, everyone gets angry. So what do you do when you get angry? And he asked me that question. And after the third time he asked, I start to cry again. And he looks at me and he says, hey, Sam, it's nice to see you. And so this book is really about, and that started a journey. He recommended me, I started journaling, and he recommended me listening to music, and I did. And without giving away too much more of the book, this book really dives into what it means to be seen and to be known and also to be loved. When I started showing people the real me, not just the happy and have it all together and $1 million man and $1 million smile and superstar. No. There's another side. And after people saw that side, that's when things happened I would have never dreamed possible. From meeting presidents of the United States, 2 former presidents of the United States, to getting
that's a crazy chapter.
Yeah, dude, to getting free Chipotle. I'm not sure how familiar you all are with Chipotle.
Love that. You know what?
I love
can I just say, I had a
Yes.
big issue because when I was listening to that part, I was listening to an audiobook, and I think here time wise it was about like 6. It was like 6 in the evening, so I was like, oh snap! I want Chipotle now. Like I don't have one. I don't have one near me. It's more in central London. You put me in a lot of trouble there.
Yeah. So I mean, and all those things came right. That was free Chipotle for a year, really 3 years. I had a card. It had my name on it. Mm-hmm. All those things came from me being me, from me not pretending anymore, not hiding, letting the world see me. And so that's what this book is all about.
Yeah, Sam, obviously, look, your book talks about you being you in it, and it's actually an inspiration and a guide to a lot of people, and something that I'm really trying to push to make sure that other people can read it, can sort of, you can inspire them as well, and sort of get people to confront their inner demons and really show the true self, especially in 2020 with COVID and everything going on. It's really crazy that, everyone's being a bit more lonely and by themselves, so that isolation is forcing a lot of people to need to confront those, and I think your book's a great shout for that. But your book's helping a lot of people, but I guess who was your biggest advocate? Who was your biggest supporter that helped you get through, I guess, difficult times?
Man, that's a great question.
Daniel for Louis, everyone. Look at this guy.
I'm telling you, dude, that is a great question. Wow. I usually not
easy for you, Sam. I can't make it easy for you.
So there's 2 people, really 3. The first person, maybe 4. I'll start with my friend Lucas. So Lucas is my friend who I sat down with that day, who said, hey, maybe you should talk to a counselor. First one who said, hey, it's good to see you, even with the sadness and the tears and the shame. And he recommended me to talk to a counselor. And what I didn't tell you in that story I told before was after sitting with the counselor, I actually met with him the day we reported to training camp. So mind you, like, we have training camp, you're gone for a month, we reported that night. That morning, I'm in a counselor's office. And so I finished that counselor's office. I drive 2.5, 3 hours to training camp. And it's funny enough, I actually met up with another professional athlete, a baseball guy, as I'm on my way down. We developed a great relationship. That was an aside, but it actually ended up coming back full circle. That night, I go to training camp. We have our team meetings, and we go back to our dorm rooms. We stay in a hotel or in a college dormitory. And I start just journaling because he said, hey, journal and write and listen to music. So I'm journaling and I'm listening to music, and I'm listening to like worship songs, like songs about God and his love and all these things. And I'm writing. And as I'm writing that night, I'm starting to cry again. I'm like, what is going on? Because it's almost as if you talk about those inner demons. Like, there was a voice in my head in so many ways that was saying I wasn't enough. I think a lot of us have that, the doubt, the fear, the shame, right? You're not enough. You'll never be enough. And there was that, like, it wasn't like constant, but at certain times that fear and that shame would come. And I think that's part of the reason why I didn't want people to see this side of me, the emotional, because it's like, oh no, that wouldn't be enough. And so I'm writing, and actually, as I'm crying, because the counselor said, hey, maybe just reach out to a couple friends if you need anybody. I called up Lucas, my friend, who told me. I said, dude, what is going on? Like, why am I crying again? And what do you know? And almost as if like, dude, why does God love me so much? Because really what I was hearing was God's love. As I'm sitting with this counselor, as I'm talking with my friend, as I'm listening to music and I'm writing, it's the songs were all speaking to my heart, almost like God saying, dude, I am for you. I love you. I will never turn my back on you. And not only you, anybody listening, I will never turn my back. And I didn't really want to believe that. And so Lucas said, hey, it's okay. I'm with you. No big deal. So he was one person who was there for me. Another person was my wife. And here's what I mean by that. I told her I was going to counseling. She knew that. And she knew, that I was, like I said, she knew I wasn't being the real me, like wasn't treating her well, my kids well. But I didn't tell her I was crying in these counseling meetings. I didn't tell her, you know what I mean? But the next day, because my wife is from Nigeria, right? My wife is like born and raised in Nigeria. Nigerian people, they are tough. Like we don't, right? Don't play around.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're crying. Are you crying? Are you mad? Crying for what? Are you a baby? Huh? Oh, wow, get out, like that. And so the next day I'm at training camp now, and I go to training camp and we do our team conditioning test, running sprints and all the things. We finish that. All the guys go in, they take a quick shower, they get some food. I just go to the locker room, I just sit down. Because I'm still trying to think and process this love that God had. Like, what? I don't get it. And I sit down, and most people had left by this time. One of my other teammates saw me and he says, hey, Sam, are you good? Like, are you okay? What's going on? And usually I would make something up. Oh, I'm tired, or it's been a long day, or whatever. But this time I said, you know what? I look at him and say, I'm not doing good. I'm just not. And he looks at me and he says, hey man, whatever's going on, you got to let it out. You got to let it out, period. It's not, I don't know what's going on, but you can't keep on keeping it inside. And now all of a sudden in the locker room, I start to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 6'3", 260 pounds. Like I'm, like, I don't know, 120 kg. Like I'm a big dude. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm crying. I'm crying. I think it's like 117 kg or so. I don't know. But anyways, so I'm like, math. It's like, what is it?
We've got to fact check these things. That's it.
Exactly. And so, so then again, and they go to the locker room, they change. One of my other teammates comes in, he sees me, kind of little tear, turns the music to worship songs instead of like rap or country or whatever, to the songs I was listening to the night before, the exact same songs about God's love and his kindness, whatever. And I'm starting to cry even more. And what does my teammate say when he sees me? He says, Sam, it is nice to see you. So that kind of third group was my teammates. They were there for me. They didn't judge me. They didn't shun me. They were there for me, specifically a guy by the name of Nick Williams was there. Akeem Hicks, who plays for the Chicago Bears. Nick Williams plays for the Detroit Lions. Those guys were there for me. And then lastly, I would say, and obviously my wife as well, I think the next day the same thing happened. I'm crying again. I told her, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm crying. And she says, is it from God? Do you think it's like from God, And I was like, I mean, it's not, I don't feel like it's from the devil, right? You talk about these voices, it's not this like evil voice, She's like, well, shoot, like, she said, is it from the Holy Spirit is what she said. It's like, I think, I don't know, and she said, well, shoot, you better watch out. You might start speaking in tongues one of these days, right? Like, And so, anyway, so she was there for me as well. Then the last person, this is, if you will, really, I feel like it was the Spirit of God. I really feel like it was the Spirit of God. I really believe that as this counselor was speaking to me, as my friend was talking to me, as my teammates were talking to me, even other friends, and their stories go on. If you read the book, you'll hear some of these, almost all of these stories. But I felt like the Spirit of God was using these people to speak, not to me, but to my heart. I felt like my heart had been not really hardened, but if y'all know Spider-Man and Venom, right? Like that black stuff. I felt like that black tar was covered. I'm telling you, dude, that's what it felt like. And every one of these counseling meetings, every time I would cry, every time these people would say, it's nice to see you, it felt like God was just whispering to my heart and gently peeling off that black
Mm.
tar that I'd put on there.
It's so significant to see there was so many turning points throughout your life, career, moments where there is a passage in the Bible that was relatable to every single kind of key moment. And I think that's such an important and also a really engaging part of the book for, even if people aren't necessarily religious or even atheists. Like, I think there's something about mindset that's really important to extract from that. Now, because the book for us now has been out for about a month or so, since it was out on October 13th, what's the feedback been like from like friends, family, peers, lovers, haters? Because it's one thing where it's like, we've spoken to different athletes before where they do books, and we're like, are the people you've warned, if there's certain stories that involve them? Have there been peers that have gone, hey dude, that's sick, I need to write a book about myself? What's that kind of reaction been like?
Yeah, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and that's been the biggest joy for me. I've had teammates, former teammates who have read the book, or even other guys in the NFL who have read the book and said, man, I can relate. I can relate. I know exactly. One of my former teammates from college, back in university, he said, man, it felt like you were reading my mail, is what he said. I've had people who know nothing about sports, people who literally know nothing about any kind of sports, and they've read the book and they say, man, so many chapters spoke to me. And one of the ladies, she said, I was afraid because I don't know anything about football, and I thought it was a football book. And man, every single chapter spoke to me. So I've had people from different countries, right? Like, read the book and really be able to relate. Even after hearing the fact that you're relating, like, that brings me so much joy. And so the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. People love the book, and people love the message of the book, the message about being real, authentic, vulnerable, and being you. And that was the original title. The original title, before we had to change it, but the title was Be You. The title was Be You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes, or How to Be Yourself. Be You. That was the title, right? Because when you're you, God gets the glory. When you're you, the people around you benefit. When you're you, the world around you thrives. When you hide, none of that happens. But when you're you, so much happens. Daniel, some of these questions, right? I've been to the UK, like it was like 10 years ago, right? But Daniel and I connected, right? We did a deal a couple months ago, right? You followed back up, and even some of the questions that you're asking, like, dude, this is like, I've never been asked this before. Matthew, even some of the little, like the fact that you started off saying, dude, I'm 8 chapters in and I'm loving it, right? Like, and you're saying I can relate. You're not trying to pretend and, well, I'm too good for this, or I'm not that. It's like, dude, it's just me. And what you all are seeing as well is me. And so I think when you're you, when you can be you and let the world see you, doors will open that you could never imagine.
See, I don't think people realize, but I always call Sam Big Bro, because he's literally like a big bro. Obviously, Nigerian culture, you got to respect the elders, but he's also Nigerian. But he has so many similarities. Obviously, you're a Christian as well. I'm a Christian as well. Grew up in the church, and you've talked a lot about your faith right now. You talked a lot about your faith in the book. And I know for myself, there was a point in my period when I was like sort of 13, 14, when I had sort of that moment, that come to Jesus moment, where it's like, woof. No, I need to believe. There's no reason why I can't believe. And I know your dad was a pastor in the church. But for me, without spoiling it too much in the book, but can you tell people just a little bit sort of what really was your call to Christ? What was that moment for you? Without going into the book too much, because I know the book talks about it, but just briefly, like, what was that call for you?
No, definitely. I'm actually going to tell you all a story that's not in the book. So I'm going to give you all a little bit of insider information.
We got an exclusive. Here we go.
An exclusive. Breaking news. Flash the lights. So 18 years old, I'm a freshman at a college called the University of Texas at Austin. It has 50,000 students on campus, 30,000 undergraduate students. Mind you, my high school had like 300 in my entire high school. So to go from a school from 300 to 30,000 for undergraduate, 50,000 in total, 100,000 in games, it was a whole new world. But I knew I had a foundation of following Jesus. I would go to church, and I had a relationship. I was baptized. Like, I had a relationship, but I didn't really know what that meant. I kind of knew right from wrong, and I didn't want to do the bad things, but I didn't really know what it meant to actually be a follower of Jesus. I didn't. I didn't understand like the grace that comes with that, and how people think Christians are just like, oh, hello, how are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. No, like, I didn't realize it was like, no, like, being a Christian is using the gifts God gave me for his kingdom, and for his glory. And it also means being humble about it. Not, you know what I mean? And humility, and I know I'm going on like 7 different tangents, but I'll say this when I go back to my story. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It doesn't mean saying, well, you know, yeah, I didn't really play in the NFL. I'm not that good. My book's just okay. That's not humility. That's just false pride, right? Because all that pride is thinking more often about yourself than you should.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas humility says you think more about others. Right. So for me with this book isn't about me. It's about who it can benefit all around the world. My prayer is that billions of people would read this book, would buy this book, would be changed by the message. So humility is that. And so I think people need to hear that, because they think, well, if I'm, whether, you know, I want to be humble and I'm just, you know, people call it a humble brag. Well, no, like, if you're you, be you and be proud about it, right? Like, God gave you these gifts and talents, abilities for a reason. So back to my story. 18 years old, college campus. I knew right from wrong. I was kind of a Christian. I didn't really know. Freshman year, all in a dorm called Jester, and I'm getting ready to go down the elevator, and I see one of my teammates, a walk-on quarterback named Trevor Walker, and he's standing by the elevator reading his Bible. Standing by the elevator reading his Bible, and I'm confused because this is college campus, and there's girls everywhere, and they're beautiful, and it's like, we're football players, you're the quarterback, like whatever. And he's reading his Bible, and I kind of paused because a lot of me said, okay, I need to get to know how you can be so bold about your faith. And he said, well, dude, let's do it together. Let's do it together. Let's live this out. Being a Christian isn't about being perfect. It's about accepting God's love. So let's just do it together. So we still had fun. Like we would throw parties. We would throw, we would call it, they lived on a street called Ulit, U-L-I-T. So we throw parties at the U. We called it the U, right? We'd have dance parties there, right? We'd have freestyle battles while we would bring people to church. We would ball on the field. We just did things together, right? A community of people who were following Jesus and who were having a great time. And like I said, but we felt, nobody was perfect. I fell down, messed up, made mistakes over and over again. But what I am learning about the love of Christ is that he literally erases your mistakes. And I don't even know a better way to say it, right? The best way would be to put on a song by a guy named Marvin Sapp. But the song says, he saw the best in me when everyone else around can only see the worst in me. Right? It says, he's mine, I'm his. It doesn't matter what I did. He only sees me for who I am. And I know I needed to hear that. So that was my moment, 18 years old on college campus, where I said, oh, wow.
I'm going to ask you again, I'm going into that, going a little deeper, all right? So we talk about the book. Obviously, anyone, again, read the book. It's a great book. But you talk about many facets of your personality that I guess you hid from a little bit, in terms of studying, getting that master's. Obviously, the locker room is not really seen that well. I know a lot of people just kind of leave college to go early to go to the NFL. It's all about the money. You talk about your faith as well, being in the locker room, being a bit afraid to show that Christian faith. You talk about your Nigerian background as well, that clash between the Nigerian background and, being African-American is a little bit different. I can relate. But I guess what was the one trait for you that you found hardest to, I guess, accept when you were coming to write the book, when you were coming to really resonate and go through therapy and really reflect on yourself? What was that one trait that you felt, or you struggled the most with growing up?
Where do you get these questions from, man? How do you, man?
We're a curious bunch. This is what it is.
I'm telling you, y'all got some. This is good. This is good. So you're saying that the thing it was hardest to share in the book, or what is it? What is
I guess what was the hardest for you to accept? Because obviously once you became accepting of yourself and showing yourself, what was the hardest one? What was the hardest trait for you?
For sure. That's easy for me. I mean, it's hard. The answer is easy, but it's still hard. The hardest thing for me to accept was the fact that I two things. Number one, I feel like I get easily injured. And here's what I mean by that. As a professional athlete, injuries are a dime a dozen. They happen all the time. I'm not talking about physical injury. I'm talking about emotional injury. So someone will say something to me, even somebody I don't know on social media, or somebody on the street will say something that will really, really hurt. My feelings will be hurt, right? Or somebody will do something that they may not have even known they were doing it, but it really hurt. I was like, man, that was wrong. Why did you do that? So coming to terms with the fact that, okay, wait, this is me. Like that sensitivity, that being emotional, whatever you want to call it, like that's me. And part of me said, oh no, like that's so, I don't want to be that way. But then God kind of revealed to me, is I think I was just kind of praying or just spending some time just alone, was that emotional sensitivity is my superpower. It's my strength. So I can feel things that other people can't feel. So if something's off between me and someone else, or if there's something like God's given me the ability to feel things at a really intense level that other people may not be able to feel. And usually I would try to shun that away. I don't want to feel that because it would hurt. But that feeling also allows me to be able to relate to people, to relate. So I think that's probably the hardest thing to accept, that piece about me. And and in addition, the other piece was the strength that I have. The strength that I have. And some of this I learned through counseling, but I knew like a lot of my fear came from, I thought that I would hurt someone if I really showed them the real me. Like my power and my strength, my intellect. Like Matthew, I think you're similar in a lot of ways. Like you super talented and gifted, but sometimes it's like, man, like what if it puts everyone else down? You know what I mean? Like there's that kind of fear. There's a book called The Boy, the Mole, the Horse, and I don't remember the last thing, but there's a book, and the Wolf is what it's called. And in this book, there's this little boy who kind of is lonely and has makes friends with this mole, and this mole sees a wolf in a trap, and the wolf is alone and by himself, but he's in a trap, and the wolf says, "Get away from me," and the mole says, "I can help you." He says, "I don't need your help." He's like, "Dude, I'm little. I can chew that thing and get you free." So the mole chews the rope and gets the wolf free, and the wolf is still by himself. And as they're kind of journeying together, they run across this horse. And the horse is the biggest thing they've ever seen, right? It's like, whoa, it's a huge horse. And they start going with the horse and walking, and all of a sudden the horse says, I have a secret. And they're like, okay, what's your secret? And the horse says, I can fly. I have wings. And it was like, well, why don't you use them? And the horse said, well, I was afraid. I didn't want to make the other horses feel less than. And instead of responding like, oh, well, just go ahead and fly. Like, come on, let's see it. The response from the boy and even the mole was, oh, well, that's okay. We'll love you regardless. We love you anyway. And so for me, my fear, I don't share this with a lot of people, but I'm just being really honest. Daniel, you're bringing it out of me, so keep up the good work. Matthew, you as well. But I think my fear was, dude, if I use all of my gifts, what will that say about everyone else around me, right? For me, I got I was named one of the top 20 smartest athletes in all of sports. So there's people who play baseball, who play soccer, plays professional. This is in college, I was named this, right? In all of sport. I got my MBA from the #1 international business school in the world, the Thunberg School of Global Management. People come from all around the nation to go to this school. I got it while I was playing football. I did it in the offseason. I won this award called the Campbell Trophy. It's the academic equivalent of the Heisman Trophy. I can recite Shakespeare. I can, and not just like to be or not to be, more than just that. I can do Richard III and all these things. And I can tell you pi. So pi is it's the ratio between the circumference of a circle to that circle's diameter, and it's a constant number. I can tell you that number to the 14th decimal, right? Like, and I play in linebacker in the NFL. Played for 3 times the average.
Yeah, it's not like you're busy or nothing, right?
You know what I mean? And I wrote a book, and I got more than I want to write, but some of me said, well, I don't want to show this, and I don't, and I think that's been the biggest thing where God's been reminding me. He's like, dude, your greatest fear isn't, and there's a quote, Marianne Williamson has this quote, it says, it says, your greatest fear isn't that you are weak, it's actually that you are powerful beyond measure. It's your strength, not your weakness, that brings us the most fear. And so anyways, for me, that's my fear. It's like, dude, I could really do whatever I want to do. But with that comes this sense of like, wow, like there's a weight to that.
I think this is really important about autobiographies with athletes or any notable person. It's like with the really dark moments, there's no dark moment without a real bright light and something that's special that happens. Now, when I was getting your book, I doubled down and also got a second book. So I got you and Barack Obama's book in the same purchase. So that's this is the levels we're talking about here. So like, that's quite an elite club. And of course, the perfect segue. So we've got President Obama, but you met, like, without spoiling it too much, and I'm just asking a super real question here, because to be honest, we don't have too many people on our shows that meet people of, in certain high offices. But what the hell? Like, what is it like meeting a president? And not just one, you've met two. And in that moment, I kind of think of it like, what would I do if I was to meet like a Dwayne Johnson? Like, do I have a planned introduction in my head straight away? Do I say hello? How did you find yourself in those situations, being around presidents of America and being like, here I am?
Well, the thing is, I didn't know I was going to meet presidents. That relationship came from being me. I've developed a friendship with one of my teammates, Larry Fitzgerald, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. And he said, we developed a friendship because I was me and he was him. And he said, hey, come to this event. I want you to meet some of my friends. He didn't tell me who the friends were.
Pretty damn cool friends.
Some cool friends. So I'm at this event and I'm like, dude, what are we doing? And why we went kind of like to this hotel, and it was downstairs, and it's behind this curtain, behind this room, inside another like secret door. I'm like, where are we going? And as we're sitting waiting, he taps me. He says, hey, see that guy right there with the headpiece in? I said, yeah. He said, that's President Clinton's body guy. I said, President Clinton, like Bill Clinton, like the president. Yeah, that's his body guy. That's a security guy. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Is he coming? He's like, yeah, that's the guy we're going to meet. And I'm like, whoa. And before I knew it, the door opens. And President Bill Clinton, former president of the United States a few years ago, President Bill Clinton walks in. And you ask what it was like. I can't describe all I could describe was the feeling. I just felt this respect. Just respect. That's just this air of like, whoa, this is somebody. Not because of his title, that's just who and how he is.
Yeah.
So I figured I would just sit. There was about 4 or 5 of us there, and him. I figured I'd just sit, listen, talk. Well, Larry Fitzgerald had learned about me and my Nigerian heritage and some of the medical mission work we do, and he became friends with President Clinton because they do work in the humanitarian work as well. They go to different countries and give out hearing aids to people with something called the Starkey Hearing Foundation. Well, while we're talking, apparently President Clinton had done a lot of work in Nigeria. So we're talking, and Fitz stops the conversation and says, hey, President Clinton, you do a lot of work in Nigeria. Sam loves Nigeria as well. He actually goes there every summer. Hey, Sam, why don't you tell the president about your trips? And I'm like, President Sam, and but then all of a sudden I start to talk. We talk for, 30 or so minutes. I tell him about Nigeria and all the things. And mid-conversation, the door opens up again. And I look, and all of a sudden, former president, but President George Bush walks in. And I'm sitting there like, wait, that's George, like that's the, and when he walked in, it wasn't the same. Like, it wasn't like Clinton had this respect. Bush felt like it was just a homie. Like, hey, let's grab a beer together. Let me dap you. Like, that's what it felt like. And so we laughed, we joked, we talked. I stayed in touch with them. I still keep in touch with his body guy. His name is Craig. Like, I've done some events with them. So it was just this amazing experience, but it all came from being me.
So, I mean, I've got to ask, because Sam, one thing that I can relate to is the fact that obviously your family, your parents moved from Nigeria to the US. My parents did the same thing as well. So we're both Nigerians, sort of first generation. I've been in the US. I understand that there is still a difference between sort of the African Americans and then the actual, Nigerian Americans. And you talk about in your book, actually, you talk about a lot of the experiences that you've had, some of the exposure you've had with regards to the differences between the two cultures. But I guess for people listening, and without spoiling it too much, what was the biggest culture shock for you personally? And, sort of, how did you really, I guess, come to handle it really? Because it can be a bit of a shock.
Yeah, the biggest culture shock for me was, I don't know, I grew up in a Nigerian household. That's the best way to put it. So I grew up in America, and yes, look at my skin. I mean, I'm not white. I mean, if you could just look, but I grew up in a Nigerian household. So we ate Nigerian foods. We went to, jollof rice and fried plantain, all the things like okra soup, pepper soup. We ate that every day. Just ate pepper soup, okra soup, plantain, all that, right? And so even we went to this thing called African Christian Fellowships. Every Saturday, once a month, we'd go and hang out with other Nigerian families. And so I know I wasn't white. You know what I mean? I knew, but I also knew with like people talk about being black and like that culture, I knew my culture was different. And so I think the biggest surprise is a better word than shock was the church I went to was a predominantly Black church. And so in that church, I also went to a school, my first and second grade, primary school. And we were taught about Black history. We were taught about some of these, heroes, obviously more than just Martin Luther King, but like Rosa Parks and guys like Benjamin Banneker and guys like Fritz Pollard, who was the first Black NFL player. We were taught about all these things. But then I switched schools. I switched schools to a predominantly white school. And all of a sudden, all these heroes that I would hear about, I never heard about again, outside of obviously Martin Luther King Jr. And I just remember being like, okay, how come some places you learn about some history and other places you don't? And so anyways, for me, and then there was even a movie we watched, right? There was a movie we watched called Roots, which talked a lot about slavery, and we kind of just perused. Oh, we just skipped over it. I was like, can we not talk about this? We talked about the law in America that where Black people had 3/5 of a vote, essentially saying, well, they're 3/5 of a person, so you have 3/5 of a vote. And we just kind of like perused over that. And I'm like, and I was one of the few Black kids in my school because I switched schools. And for me, I was like, I was 10 years old, but I knew something was wrong about that.
It's fascinating. One thing that really struck me, because as we can see, I'm not Black, but my mother is from the Philippines. So from a Filipino background, I got to see something that one of the main things so far that I had listened to in your book that I really connected to was the facts that if I'm setting up this story right, you had gone to Nigeria with your parents, your family, and you saw a 15-year-old kid, and you were so shocked by what you had seen, and without giving up too much away. But one thing you said in that part of the book was what they had over what you felt this kid had over yourself was joy. And that is something that struck me straight away, because through my work as a filmmaker, I've seen that when I've done charity work with a YouTube friend of mine called Andy Castell, AJ3, big up. But he brought me out to Uganda, and we went and we did a piece about soccer, helping educate kids with HIV and AIDS. And that was the first thing. It was my first experience in Africa was in Uganda, and also the same when I did work after that in Cameroon. The joy in those communities, and that was something that really hit me, because that was also what I also feel when I go back to the Philippines and see in these little villages tucked out away, like there's some serious joy with these villages, these communities. And what do you think that says about us maybe as Westerners, and what can we learn from that we can, like 2020 is a great example of how I think we're getting caught up in a lot of things that we're letting our emotions get the better of us. But what can we learn from like the 15-year-old kid that has all that joy in their heart when they don't have as much as we do?
Yeah, for me, 15 years old, I went on this medical mission trip with my parents to Nigeria. And I was, I'm a bigger kid, right? Eating good, the whole deal. Go to Nigeria, and my name, Sam, right? Sam Acho, but Samuel is my name. My full name, Samuel Onyedi Kachi Acho. That's my name. And soon we got to get Daniel's middle name too, because he might have something for us.
I'll tell you at the end. Don't worry. I'll tell you.
Okay. And so I'm 15 years old. I go on this trip, and I see this little kid just kicking a soccer ball. He had like some dinky kind of shirt and some shorts and some sandals. And I start talking to him. And as we're talking, I just see this joy that he has in his life. And I'm thinking he's probably 8 or 9 years old, really skinny, really whatever. We'll come to find out he's 15 years old. And his name was also Samuel. And at that point, it hit me like, oh, wow, this isn't, like, number one, God gave me an opportunity to be in America and on the West and all these things. And yeah, that's a benefit. But man, this kid has something that I don't have. He has joy. He has peace in the midst of chaos.
Yeah, no, I see that as well. When I go back to Africa, I think you see that. For me, there is that joy. It's one reason why I thought about maybe moving back to Africa, because you actually see this just innocence, in those communities. There's a bit of joy, there's a bit of happiness, and you don't really get that with when you're in the West, in the US, in England. So many factors come and affect that. So I do think there is a bit of a joy in that. And yeah, Sam, you want to know my?
Yeah, with the middle name. I want to hit the middle name. Come on.
Oh, well, because Sam's Igbo, right? So obviously there's different types of groups in it. So I could tell already from the way his middle name is Igbo. I'm Yoruba, so mine's Olaluwa. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Olaluwa. And what does it mean, Olaluwa?
So the full name is actually my dad's name. So it's Oluwa, and then it's Oluwa Kayode Tikintor, and it just means God's grace is with you. So yeah.
Hold on, so you sped past that. Slow it down. Give it all the syllables.
Let's get it all out, Daniel.
Was long. Yes.
No. So we have Olaluwa, which is my dad's one, and that's really sort of with God's grace is with you. And then we have Ola Kayode as well. So yeah. So and then Daniel's actually in the Hebrew word is judgment of God. So you got judgment of God. You got God's with you, mate. I'm just like blessed all around here.
Let me give you mine. Because that's huge. So I don't even go here with a lot of people because they're like, oh wow. So Samuel means heard by God, and then Onyedi Kachi. I'm Igbo, so it's Onyedi Kachi. It means who is like unto God, as in like there's no one you can compare to God. It's almost like this phrase, like man, there's nobody who can compare to God.
I feel like I need to do a bit of research on my name. I feel like I've got the.
I will ask this though, because I know some people I know from the Philippines. I may be way off. Like, do you have like one of my friends said, I don't have a middle name. Is that true in the Philippines? Is that not true? Maybe I'm making that up.
Maybe not necessarily true. Like I think it'd be for my family. So having British dad, Filipino mother. So my middle name is Paulino, and that's my grandfather's name. For some reason, my younger brother has got my mother's maiden name as his middle name. So they've just done this crazy thing. But there are some crazy tradition stuff where like they all kind of like, I don't know if it's my dad's fault. This is a Filipino side, but for example, like all my brothers have got the same letters in the alphabet. So you got Matthew, Mark, Melvin, and me as a Matt. So I don't know. I think my family kind of took the rule book and kind of just screwed it all up. So it was. I don't blame him for it. Like I'm glad. I'll take any name, but I probably need to do more research like you guys have done. It's important. We got to know our roots. Maybe when I get down to doing the book one day, I can do the research, ask the important questions. But one last question about the book before I know Daniel's got some important football stuff to ask about. One thing I thought was so I don't know if it was maybe in an interview. I think it was in an interview you did about the book, and I think it's so important. It's great that you have planted many seeds during and now in this stage of your career, where when there's life after football, you're in a great place. Maybe for other athletes out there, people that maybe think they might be putting their all into sport and might feel like they're not getting the break they want. What advice would you give to other people of sport and ilk that, should look into planting seeds into other, not that they should give up on what they're doing or plan too quickly for the end of their career, but how important is it to have those extra layers and options and avenues as a sport athlete?
That's a great question. Y'all come up with some really good questions. This is a hard one because there's a balance in wanting to give your all in your sport. And like you said, Matt, not giving up too quickly.
Yeah.
One thing that I've learned is that it's this idea of being balanced, and different people balance differently. For me, I'm at my best when I'm doing multiple things. So I'm at my best when I'm dominating on the football field. I'm taking MBA classes, right? I'm at my best when I'm doing, parenting, I got kids. I'm at my best. But when I'm just doing one thing, For me, it's not that it's hard for me to stay super focused. And so what I would tell some people, right, you kind of know how you are, know where you're at your best, but I would tell some people, like, do the things that you love. And if sport is one of them, then keep on doing sport and be the best at it. Do not waste this opportunity, because it was an opportunity of a lifetime. Playing sport, playing American football has opened up doors I could have never imagined. But that's not me. I am more than an athlete. I'm more than just an American footballer. I'm a writer. I'm a lover of people. I'm an author now, right? Like there's so much we have so many more layers than we give ourselves credit for, right? So if you can do multiple things, yes, do multiple things, right? Don't feel like it's taking away. But some people are just so laser focused, where it's like if what you need is to dial in and give it everything you've got, point blank, period, because you have no idea. There's a verse in the Bible that says, all hard work leads to profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Work hard. Work hard. All hard work leads to profit. Not some hard work, all hard work. I remember the way I would grind and train and eat right and do all these things. I'm thinking, what is it going to pay off? When am I going to get my big contract? Whatever. But what's not to say that the reason I played 9 years in the NFL wasn't because of all the hard work I put in early on, right? With the book, that was hard work, but it's led to profit. Now people are hearing about the message about being real and being seen and being known and being loved. All hard work leads to profit. Mere talk leads only to poverty. That would be my advice.
So, Sam, we're going to talk a little bit about football. Obviously, we're going to give you a little break with the difficult questions about the book. So, I guess, just, speeding up quickly in terms of just talk a little bit about the football. Obviously, you've been in the NFL locker rooms. You've been in multiple NFL locker rooms. Obviously, we've heard a lot of stories. Anyone listens to sports shows, you hear so many stories coming out from the locker room. But I guess for you, if you can, give us probably the most embarrassing story within the locker room that you can. Yeah, I know it's a brotherhood.
No, I got one. This is the most embarrassing story. So it's more, maybe has to do with Black culture too. So people know about Jordan, right? Michael Jordan and his shoes. Jordans, right? People always wear Jordans. Yeah. They call them J's, right? I'm sure y'all got your J's, right? Jaywalking J's on your feet. I didn't know much about Jordans, right? Like I said, I went to a predominantly white school. My classmates weren't wearing Jordans. And so I remember I got to the NFL and my sister got me some J's, some Jordans. And I don't know if they were actually like the real, like, oh, these are 7s. Some people, man, I got the 12s or whatever. They were just, had a random little Jordan logo. And so I wore them with pride, right? Like I got some new shoes.
Damn right.
My teammates were on my head about these. They called them fake J's, fake Jordans. They're like, saying, you make too much money to be wearing these fake Jordans. You're not in college, you're in the NFL now. Stop wearing these fake J's. But I still wore them. I'm not gonna let y'all deter me. I'm gonna wear what I wear. I don't care what y'all think, right?
Respect.
Until one day, you say respect now. To listen to this. One day I go out to practice. I come back from practice and I see, because we had like a poster board in our, a clipboard in our locker room, and you had things you would write down. They would pin stuff on the board, like one of those little boards you pick. My J's from the shoelace were pinned to that little pin board thing in the locker room. And somebody wrote on the whiteboard, they wrote, "No fake J's in the locker room." And so it was like, so from then on, I was the culprit of the fake J's. And I think actually right now, those J's are somewhere. I took them on a mission to Nigeria, just didn't bring them back. Somebody in Nigeria, some little kid wearing size 15 shoes now is walking around with some fake J's getting talked about in some village in Nigeria.
Oh, that's actually a very funny story. That's actually quite hilarious. Oh, yeah, because I know in Black culture in particular, J's are, you live and you die by your J's. You cannot be rocking no fake Jordans.
Fake J's, yeah.
Yeah, you can't be doing that. So that's hilarious. Going back to football, you've been sort of vice president of the Players Association, or you are vice president of the Players Association. I guess what was the biggest challenge you faced in that position? Because obviously I know that a lot of players are going to look at you and be like, "Yo, Sam, you're my boy. You got to have my back. What you doing?" And then obviously from the organization's point of view, you're like, "Look, it's almost it's a corporate environment." So what's that big challenge for you?
The biggest challenge for me, and I love that question again, the biggest challenge for me was when we were negotiating a collective bargaining agreement to see if football was going to be played over the next 10 years from 2021 to really from 2020 to 2030. And I took the position that after negotiating for months, almost a year, that the deal that we had was a good deal to take. And not maybe not the best deal, but a deal worth taking.
Mm-hmm.
Many of my NFL cohorts did not think the same. They said, Sam, we have left, we get more, put it to the owners and take what we can get, which I love that perspective and I get it. But I didn't agree with it because I felt like we were at a strong position and it wasn't worth risking losing the progress that we had. Now, other people's, like Richard Sherman, he's on the executive committee with me. His position is, well, Sam, you got to take risk. That's what football is all about. That's what life's all about. Take the risk. We have the leverage. If any time, now is the time. And I just disagreed because I didn't feel like we were strong enough as a collective unit of 2,000 players to all act as one and really fight against ownership. So that was the hardest thing for me, speaking up for the players who said, hey, I'm okay with this deal. I don't want to risk another lockout or a strike. I don't want that. I like what we got.
Asking the hard questions and making the big decisions. And as we draw it to a near close, last question from me. It's one I'm starting from Dan because I was like, it's going to be a deep conversation and I need to easy out. And Dan put his name next to a question. I was like, Daniel, I'm taking this question, bro, because we could talk for hours. We could talk for hours, but take a leaf out Daniel's book. I want to know. He wants to know. What is the future of Sam Acho? Analyst, pastor, social justice campaigner, author. What's going to happen? President? Come on, give us a scoop.
You just said them. You said it. You said it all. All those 5 things you just said, I'll take. So, dude, I love, Matthew, these questions and these topics. So for me, analyst, I've been working for doing some TV analysis, college football analysis, and I've really enjoyed that. So I want to continue to pursue that, and even NFL analysis as well. So pursuing that. Pastor piece, people said, man, go be a pastor, I always said I want to be a pastor for my teammates, right? Like when I'm on the locker room. So I love Jesus and I love telling people about Jesus. I love spreading the good news, like, hey man, like you're forgiven and you're loved. So somehow, some way, I want to continue to let people know about Jesus, right? That was one of my friends told me that too, that my friend before he passed away, right? He said, man, get to know Jesus. That's the most important thing. So pastor piece, I think that's there as well. You talked about the author piece as well. Like I would love to write more books, but for now I'm really focusing on letting people know about this one. But for me, I need to write. Writing is super healthy for me. So author, president.
Let's go.
You know what I mean? I almost ran for governor like my last year in the NFL. I was like, yeah, I think I might do this. In Chicago, my last year in Chicago. Excuse me. Yeah, it's funny when I got released from the Arizona Cardinals. Mind you, I started since my rookie year and was playing really well, but then I had an injury. I broke my leg and I was out for the season, and I tried to come back and I was kind of limping through the year that year. When the general manager released me, he reached out to my agent, I guess through a text message. Maybe he even told me or whatever. He said, hey, Sam, you're a great guy. And he said, hey, if you're running for president, I would vote for you. But as far as football goes, we want to go in a different direction. Man, talk about a backhanded compliment, right? Like, oh, you're a nice guy. Yeah, you could date my daughter, but you're not good at, I don't want to hear that, And but so in my mind, sometimes I take that stuff to heart. I'm like, you know what? I might just run for president one of these days, and you better vote for me. So president, that'd be cool. But I don't know, dude. I love hanging out with my wife and kids. I love speaking, right? So I've been able to go to different organizations and teams and speaking, doing, encouraging them. That's what I love doing. So any opportunity I get to speak and to encourage, like I said, I went to South Korea and spoke at the George Mason University, their business school, right? The South Korea campus. Did a football camp out there, right? So I talked to the Clemson University football team here in the States, talked to different organizations and companies. So I love speaking, love encouraging. Love this book. Love my book, Let the World See You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes. Get it on audiobook wherever you get your books.
Yeah.
Love that. And I don't know, dude. Like, I love your question, but I'm just like, all right, God, whatever you have next, I'm game. I'm game.
You'll take any path that comes in front of you. Well, if I could legally vote, dude, you got my vote. But maybe me and Daniel again, we can maybe help make campaign videos. We can help run the socials. We can just take stills, a president. We can have a president that will use social media positively. Just something nice. Let's keep it warm and happy. So you got my vote, dude. But listen, I don't want to keep you any longer, and just want to say thank you for giving everyone the opportunity to read such a personal journey. I'm halfway through. Really loving what I'm seeing, so I can't wait to wrap up that book and complete it, and then next up Barack Obama's going to follow that up. So that's a big deal. But yeah, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Get on that audiobook, guys. You got to get on that. Read it, order it, paperback, hardback, whatever you can get your hands on it. It's really, really inspirational. I think there's a lot that young and old can learn from it. So let the world see you, how to be real in a world full of fakes. You know where to find it. You know how to use the internet. Daniel, big up as well, brother, because you come through. You got the big SA in the house again.
Mate, I'm just happy, mate, because like I said to Sam, I want to do my best to promote the book. Fellow Nigerian, trying to support each other, fellow Christians support each other, but also it's just a great book, to be fair, and it's a book that I've seen in this particular year, 2020. A lot of people have been struggling, so I know people can need a little bit of sunshine, and I know a lot of people are turning to books right now, and one book you really need to turn to is this book. And so, look, I've read it. It's inspirational, so that's why I want to encourage other people to read it as well and be inspired by it as well.
That's it. Strong words. Well, Sam Acho, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon. We'll talk when the president campaign gets running, book number 2, whatever it may be. We'll be here. We'll be here to chat. But hopefully in a world where hopefully things come back to normal, when we're allowed to enter borders and cross borders and all that good stuff. Hopefully we'll see you one day in person. So I appreciate your time. Daniel, as ever, thank you for joining us on the Alternative Sports Show. Hit subscribe, go buy the book, say hello on social media. A lot of big exciting things are coming, and we shall see you next time. Thanks.